Now, Michigan Reimagined with Chris Buck.
So there's a lot said about the power of small business when it comes to vibrant and healthy communities. And there's an equal amount of press about how small businesses are faring during the pandemic. Here to share her story of impressive growth is CEO and founder of Peak Performance Physical Therapy, Jill Marlan. Welcome, Jill.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely great to have you here. Why don't you start off a little bit? Can you tell us about how you got into physical therapy to begin with?
Sure. So, I got into physical therapy now about 22 years ago, and I was going through a time when I was in college and I was working with my grandmother through a lot of health issues, and she had some referral down her leg and she had some back issues, and we were going from one doctor to the next, to the next, to the next. And she just, was getting moved on, but never really getting treatment. And working through her, she was diligent. She's a very extremely smart woman. And, one of the things that I just loved about it was that she got to a physical therapist who she said, she's the best. She's absolutely the best. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I want to go into something like this that can actually help people, where she can land in a place where she feels somebody is the best and can make a difference for her that was life-changing and life-altering for her to be able to function, be able to move, be able to continue on and function. And, ever since then, I was just extremely passionate about that and passionate about getting people through the healthcare system without getting stuck in it. Oftentimes, we realize that it takes you months and months and months to get to an answer when it's not needed. I've had the opportunity to work with professional sports and on the sidelines, and I realize now that what it takes at times, the general population, to get through something, 3 to 5 months can happen in an hour on the sideline at a professional game. And so why not us? Why can't we have that? And so it's my mission to make sure that the general population and the general public can receive that kind of health care.
That's a fantastic example and parallel that really resonates with me, because you watch that and you hear about injuries, and he's about 3 to 4 weeks. He's got a fractured leg, whatever it is. And it's amazing. It's like, well, if that happened to me, it would take me a really long time. So that makes a lot of sense. Right. Now, physical therapy clearly as an industry has been around for a really long time, but unless I'm mistaken, it just seems like there's been a new advent to physical therapists. There's been development projects. I see expansion clearly in your model. I've seen brands I've never heard of popping up in strip malls. I mean, is there a kind of a renaissance or a rising up of this industry currently, or has that always been there and I'm just noticing it myself?
Yeah, I think lately, probably within the last 5 or 10 years, when you start to look at the profession, the research has been astounding. And so a lot of times in the past, we've been talking a lot about healthcare, and we need to change our healthcare system, and, it's too costly and it's starting to snowball and get out of hand. Well, when we look at the research with physical therapy, is oftentimes physical therapy can change the way that healthcare is performed. So instead of going the route of going to a doctor and getting narcotics and getting pain injections and getting surgery and then going to physical therapy, we're realizing that thousands and thousands of dollars are being saved by the entry level of care being with physical therapy first. And oftentimes preventing surgeries for things like meniscus and herniated discs in your back and all of these other cares, your back or your neck or rotator cuff tears in your shoulders, have all been able to adjunct or move away from the injections and the costful surgeries. So what's happening is that there's been an increased demand for that for many different reasons, both from an economic reason, but also from an outcomes reason, and looking down the road in regards to some of the research. So I think that's where you're seeing some of the big surge, is because they're actually showing some of the significant research of the benefits that are coming out from the overall outcomes of physical therapy.
So I know you're super proud of your brand, and as a Lansing resident, I know about your story, and I see, your locations popping up. But for those who don't know, what makes Peak Performance the best or different, or how do you identify your brand amongst all of the other people that do the work that you do?
Yeah, I am, obviously, like you said, I'm extremely proud of our brand, and I work really hard at making sure that we have a reproducible product, which is, like I talked about, I'm compassionate about somebody coming into our system and truly being able to reach their peak, to be able to get to wherever it is that they need to, whether it's performing on a professional stage or if it's being able to grocery shop or being able to manage a household. And so one of the things that we do is that we call it the peak experience. And I sat down and I kind of wrote out of what would be the optimal experience from somebody receiving physical therapy care. And then I sat down with every single one of my team members, and we came up with, if you were sending your mom or your grandma for care, what is the experience that you would want, and what would that look like? What would be the ideal scene coming into our practice? And so with that, we've decided, we kind of came up as a team that we would think a well-established and educated and friendly staff. So first of all, you have to have people that are extremely knowledgeable, right? That are educated in what they're doing. We have to have efficient schedules that meet your need. We have to have on-time appointments, because people don't like to wait, right? I mean, you just don't have time anymore. One-on-one manual treatment, so hands-on with everybody that comes in our door. Collaboration and coordination with your healthcare team, which that's key. We are calling doctors. We're in their office. We are calling massage therapists. We're calling acupuncturists. We are collaborating with your team, because that's how healthcare should be. Like, just bottom line, if nobody's talking, you're not getting better. And that's key to your healthcare. Education on the healing process. You would be surprised at how many people walk through our door that have had a significant amount of treatment, whether it's been surgery, whether it's been injections, and you start asking them about it, and they really don't know what they've had done. They don't know what level they've had a spinal fusion. I'm not sure, it was in my low back. Well, is it a L4, L5, L5? It makes a difference. They don't know. And it's not that they haven't been told, but they've been told in a jargon that's almost a foreign language to them, right? So, yep. and they're afraid to ask, or they don't even know the questions to ask. And so that's key. Focus on whole body healing, individualized goals met with successful outcomes, and ongoing support with scheduled follow-ups. So that's our peak experience. And if we can do that with each and every patient that walks through our door, the product and the success for these patients is phenomenal.
And where did you start? Where is the first location, and when did that launch?
So our first location was, I was working in the field for about 12 years, and then I started the first location, and it was here in Lansing, and that was 2011, and that was myself and one other person, and about a 1,500 square foot location, and shortly after that, we outgrew that location and started hiring some staff, and had an increased demand, so we continued with that. So that was, I think that was in 2013. I purchased a building, and we built out about half of that building, about 8,000 square foot of space.
Wow, okay.
There, and we transitioned over there. That's on Westshire Drive. And then we expanded to Okemos, where we're right next to Playmakers. We have a 7,000 square foot facility over there, and that was in September of 2018. And then from there, we expanded to DeWitt. In May of 2019, we have about a 5,000 square foot space there. And then recently, in the middle of a pandemic, we opened it up in Mason in October of 2020.
Got it. Okay. So rapid fire from 18 to 20.
Yeah.
You knocked out a handful of expansion.
Yeah.
The Playmakers thing has always fascinated me. I mean, clearly there's got to be some synergy in sharing a wall with the local and beloved running store.
Yeah.
Physical therapy. Does that kind of go hand in glove? Is there some sort of, clearly you're two separate businesses and all of that, but is there a mutual benefit to having that proximity to them?
Yeah. Before that even came into fruition, Kurt Munson and I would get together and meet on a regular basis, and we would talk shoes, and we would talk foot dynamics, and we would talk, all of that on how the next and the best shoe should be that comes out, really what's best for your foot. And so we would get together and just hash out things, just work together. And then we started, after we were doing that and coming up with just some, we thought solving all world problems, right, through your foot.
Yep.
But we started talking about, how can we work together? How can we make this happen where, we have a symbiotic relationship in the community, because we both had a passion to giving back to the community.
Yep.
And so it happened that space was open, and Kurt called me, and he's like, hey, I got a way that we can work together, and this is, this will be fabulous. And so many meetings, from there on, moving forward with Brian and Tom, and, JB and everybody over there. They're fabulous to work with, and we made it come to light. So that was an exciting project for me.
Good for you. So you mentioned the pandemic during expansion, but generally speaking, I mean, the pandemic has affected pretty much every walk of life. In your situation, your hands-on experience and your face-to-face, public interaction, how were you affected? How long were you shut down? And how did you navigate through that?
So during this time, I think if you talk to any small business owner, we were flipped on our heads, almost immediately. It was something that changed immediately. There wasn't like, okay, let's plan for this. Let's work, let's plan for what's coming. It hit very quickly in March. Mm-hmm. And so, we went from a, full caseload of helping lots and lots of people to that changing, almost overnight. And so having to strategize from a human resource, perspective was amazing. My team pulled up their bootstraps and we went to work. And our goal was to keep our staff on board and connected with us the best that we could. And if we had to furlough, which we did have to go through some furloughs, but it was for 3 weeks and we got everybody back. And it was, during that time, all benefits. And we wanted to make sure our staff was protected through all of this. So every decision we made was based on that. But, I think moving swiftly, changing and transitioning into telehealth. And we did this before the insurance company said that they would even cover that. We said, you know what? We don't care. We want to provide the service to our patients because they need it. They were here yesterday. How come they don't need us today? Or how come it's, and so we never fully closed. We transitioned some of our care into telehealth, and then we transitioned some of our, our patients into, social distancing and mask use and, all of the cleaning protocols, which we had in place, but we ramped up, significantly due to all the COVID protocols. So, we were only down for a little bit and then transitioned back up, never fully closed. And our team, we developed a saying that tough times don't last, but tough teams do. And my team really owned up to that and just were amazing and resilient through all of this.
How about inoculations? Are you considered the healthcare industry, and have your people kind of gone through the vaccination process, or how much of that can you share? I mean, is that...
Yeah. So, we are. We're considered essential workforce, which is why we never did have to close through the whole pandemic. Okay. So physical therapy was an essential workforce, and we stayed open and maintained, through that. As far as the vaccination, so we have in 3 different counties, we have clinics in 3 different counties. And so as soon as we could, we've registered with 3 different counties. And all of our staff that have needed their vaccinations have been vaccinated the first time at this point. So, or that, are willing. It's right now, it's not mandatory. We've talked to many large organizations, the Sparrows and the McLarens, and have kind of followed suit with some of the larger hospital organizations as far as requiring or not requiring. But we've kind of transitioned into that, and all of our staff have seamlessly been able to receive their vaccinations.
Excellent. Well, I know you're very studied, and you look beyond your own company. And in a conversation that I recently heard, you talked about blue zone communities, and I actually had to look that up a little bit. Can you share with us a little bit about what that is and why that's important? Clearly, your industry is kind of locked, would benefit from that. But explain what that means and what maybe Lansing or other Michigan communities could do. Do we have any blue zones? What is it, and how does it work?
Yeah, blue zones are really, when you look at it, they're healthy zones. They're zones within our world, within our community, within our country, where the healthiest people live. And we look at, where people live the longest. And not only do they live the longest, but they live the healthiest. So they have their quality of life is longer as well as their quantity of life. And that's important because when you just look at longevity, it can be longevity with a tremendous amount of health and other issues that are not necessarily there. So a blue zone is something that the community gets behind. Whether it's the state, whether it's just a small city or whatever, gets behind, and everything they do is in fact based off of health. So walking paths, community parks, how transportation, the type of food that's provided, the businesses that are in the area, the support to the community in the area, And all of that significantly backs up the effect of the overall health and wellness of a community, which is so important in the long haul of everything.
No question. Well, I think about Lansing's Time Is Now and just kind of Mid-Michigan's identity and your partnership with Playmakers and the great work you've done and expanded. I'd love to maybe even catch up with you later to talk more in depth about this Blue Zone topic.
Absolutely.
So how can people find Peak Performance Physical Therapy?
So they can look on our website, www.peakperformanceompt.com, or they can call us at 517-853-6800.
Excellent. We've been talking with the CEO and founder of Peak Performance Physical Therapy, Jill Marlan, winner of notable things, the Best Small Business, Entrepreneur of the Year. Take a look. It'll definitely be worth your time. Thanks very much for joining me.